Lyra had always known her world as quiet, safe, and predictable. The twin suns rose over the horizon every day, casting a golden-orange glow over the tall, swaying grasses of her village. Birds with bright, shimmering feathers sang in the mornings, and the stream sparkled like silver ribbons winding through the land. Life was simple, peaceful, and ordinary, until the day the sky tore open with fire. It started as a streak, a flash of light that cut across the heavens like a knife. Lyra was sitting by the river gathering the glowing herbs her mother used for healing. She froze, heart pounding in her chest, and stared at the sky. The streak grew bigger, brighter, until a massive object descended, crashing into the far edge of the village. Trees splintered and the ground trembled beneath her feet. Birds scattered in every direction, shrieking. Fear and curiosity gripped Lyra at the same time. Something had landed here. Something not of this world. Her instincts told her to run, to hide in the safety of her home, but her feet moved of their own will, carrying her toward the smoke and the noise. Every step sent her heart racing. Her mind was filled with questions. What was it? Could it hurt her? Could it be alive? As she crested a small hill, she saw the wreckage. The human ship lay in ruins, metal twisted and smoking, smoke curling into the sky like a dark ribbon. The smell of burning fuel and scorched earth filled the air. Lyra's first thought was fear, but when she saw the figure emerging from the wreck, fear shifted into awe. The human was unlike anything she had ever seen. Tall, with skin pale and strange under their sun, hair dark and tousled, eyes that seemed to hold the entire sky within them. He moved with a careful grace, every step deliberate yet somehow unafraid. Lyra felt a flutter in her chest, a strange warmth she had never known before. She tried to look away, tried to tell herself it was just curiosity, but her eyes betrayed her. He stumbled slightly, catching himself on a piece of the wreckage. Lyra noticed the faint scars on his arms, evidence of some struggle she could only guess at. She wanted to approach to help, but something inside her froze. A voice whispered, "This is not safe." Yet another voice said, "You must know more." Finally, she took a small step forward. Her feet crushed the soft grass, but the sound seemed loud in the quiet after the crash. The human turned toward her, and for a brief moment their eyes met. Lyra felt her heart skip, as if it recognized something deep inside her. The human smiled faintly, a small, tired smile, and it felt like sunlight breaking through clouds. I'm just someone trying to survive," he said softly, his voice calm, steady, and strange. Lyra felt her chest tighten at the sound. His words were simple, but they carried weight, a sincerity that resonated in her bones. She nodded slowly, unsure what to say. I am Lyra," she replied, her voice trembling slightly. He inclined his head as if acknowledging her, and in that moment, the world seemed to pause. The wind slowed, the birds hushed, and even the smoke seemed to curl more gently. Lyra couldn't explain why, but she felt a pull toward him, an invisible thread connecting their hearts. The villagers began to gather, murmuring in fear and curiosity. Some hid behind trees, others watched from a distance. They had never seen a human before. To them he was an alien being, strange and possibly dangerous. But Lyra's thoughts were not of danger. Her mind was full of questions she didn't have answers for, and feelings she didn't understand. She studied him closely. The way his eyes scanned the environment, the careful movements, the way he seemed to breathe in rhythm with the world around him, something inside her stirred. It was curiosity, yes, but more than that. It was a spark of something alive, something powerful. As the suns began to set, painting the sky in shades of purple and gold, Lyra realized that her life had changed forever. The quiet village she had always known was no longer the same. Something new had arrived, something that would challenge her, scare her, and awaken feelings she had never experienced. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but one thing was certain: she could not look away. The human was here, and he was different. More than that, he had touched something inside her, a fire, a curiosity, a fear, and a longing all at once, and for the first time in her life, Lyra felt that the world was bigger than she had ever imagined. The morning after the crash, Lyra could not sleep. Her mind kept replaying the image of the human, tall and strange, with eyes that seemed to pierce through her thoughts. Even as the village woke and began its daily chores, she found herself distracted, her hands moving mechanically as her mind wandered to him. She had never felt this way before. Her world was orderly, predictable, and safe, but now, a strange warmth had begun to grow inside her chest. It was confusing, unsettling, and thrilling all at once. She tried to tell herself it was just curiosity, that humans were unknown creatures and nothing more. But it was more than that. Every time she thought of him, her heart raced. Every time she imagined his voice, her breath caught. Lyra watched from a distance as the human moved through the village. He carried logs with ease, helped elders lift fallen beams, and tended to the injured animals left behind by the storm. He never complained, never hesitated, and yet he carried a quiet strength that was unlike anything she had ever seen. The villagers, cautious at first, began to trust him. Even her friends whispered in awe, saying he was brave, capable, and unlike any being they had encountered. But for Lyra, it was more than admiration. It was confusion. She felt changed. Her thoughts were louder, her emotions sharper, her very senses heightened. When he laughed at a joke a child made, she felt it in her chest as if it were a note in a song meant only for her. When he worked silently, focused and calm, she felt drawn to his presence in a way that frightened her. She could not understand it, but she could not escape it either. That evening, Lyra tried to hide in the fields, hoping to gather herbs for her mother without encountering him. But as she bent over the glowing plants, she felt his shadow fall across her. She looked up to see him standing there, eyes gentle, lips curved in a small smile. "You work well," he said simply. "The plants respond to care just like people do." Lyra's heart skipped. His words, calm and unassuming, carried a weight she could not explain. She wanted to look away, to remind herself she was not weak, but she could not. Something inside her had already changed. Days passed and the change grew stronger. When she slept, he appeared in her dreams. Not speaking, just present, watching over her as if she were important. When she ate, she imagined his smile. When she walked, she felt as if his gaze followed her. Even when he was far away, Lyra tried to deny it, tried to convince herself it was imagination, but deep inside she knew it was real. One afternoon she found herself speaking aloud to no one, her voice trembling. Why do I feel this? What is happening inside me? The question hung in the air, unanswered. She had never experienced such emotions. Fear mingled with excitement, confusion with longing. Her chest felt tight, her hands shook, and yet a fire burned within her. A fire she could not control, could not ignore. Her friends began to notice. "Lyra, are you distracted? You seem different," one said gently. Lyra shook her head. I don't know," she whispered. "I just feel something I have never felt before." Even as she said it, she felt guilty. She worried her emotions were selfish, dangerous, unnatural. Humans were strangers. They did not belong here. And yet she could not turn away. The warmth inside her, the pull toward him, was growing stronger with every passing day. By the time the twin suns began to set, casting long shadows over the village, Lyra realized the truth. She was no longer the same. Something had awakened inside her, something she could not name. It was more than curiosity, more than fear, more than admiration. It was something alive, something powerful, and something that frightened her with its intensity. She stood alone in the fields, wind brushing through her hair, and whispered to herself, almost as if speaking to him, "What is happening to me?" And in that quiet moment, as the stars began to appear, Lyra knew that her life would never be ordinary again. The human had come into her world, and he had awakened something deep inside her, a spark that would not be extinguished, no matter how hard she tried. Lyra did not yet understand the fire he had lit in her soul, but she felt it burning bright, calling her to face it, to explore it, and to discover what it truly meant. The unseen change had begun, and there was no turning back. The twin moons had begun to rise, casting a soft silver glow over the village. Lyra walked alone through the tall grasses, her hands trembling slightly as the wind brushed against her face. She could feel the warmth inside her chest, a fire that would not be ignored. Every step she took was heavy with thought, every breath laced with uncertainty. Tonight she would confront him. She had to know. When she reached the edge of the village, she saw him. The human was sitting by the stream, his reflection mirrored in the water. He seemed calm, peaceful even, as if the world had no power to trouble him. Lyra stopped for a moment, studying him. The way the moonlight touched his face, highlighting the lines of his features, made her heart ache and pulse all at once. She swallowed hard and stepped closer. Why does this happen to me?" Her voice shook, barely more than a whisper. He looked up, his eyes soft and patient, as if he had been expecting her. "Happened to you?" he asked gently. Lyra's hands clenched at her sides. I feel something. Something I do not understand. Every time you are near, my heart, it beats faster. My thoughts, they spin, my chest. It hurts and burns. I cannot control it." Tears pricked at her eyes, and she turned them away to hide the fear she felt. The human stood slowly and stepped closer. "Lyra," he said softly, "there are feelings that awaken inside beings when they encounter something new, something meaningful. It is not weakness. It is life." She shook her head, her long hair swaying in the breeze. "Life? No, it is confusion. I have never felt this before. I am not ready for this. I do not understand. What is happening inside me?" He looked at her steadily, his gaze unwavering. "You are not broken. You are not lost. You are alive. Your heart, your mind, your soul, they are simply waking to something powerful, something real." Lyra's tears fell freely now. She wanted to push him away, to hide from the intensity, but she could not. Every part of her wanted to reach out, to touch him, to feel connected in a way she could not explain. She felt fragile, exposed, vulnerable, and yet more alive than she had ever felt in her entire life. I do not know if I am strong enough," she admitted, her voice barely audible. "It scares me. It makes me dizzy, makes me want to run. And yet," she trailed off, unable to finish, as if saying the words aloud would make them disappear. "Yet you are here," he said quietly. "Yet you did not turn away. You are facing it. That is what strength looks like. Not denying your feelings, not hiding from fear, but standing in it and seeing it clearly. That is courage." Lyra trembled, staring at him. His words struck something deep inside her, a resonance she had never felt before. For the first time, she realized that the fire inside her chest was not a threat. It was a gift, something that would guide her, teach her, and perhaps connect her to others in ways she had never imagined. I think I want to understand it," she whispered, voice barely audible over the wind. "I do not know how, but I want to." He nodded, a small smile playing at his lips. "Then we will face it together. You do not have to understand everything at once. Some things awaken slowly. Some things are meant to grow." Lyra took a step closer, her heart pounding. The warmth inside her surged, a tide that threatened to spill over. She realized she trusted him, not just as a stranger in her world, but as someone who had awakened life inside her. Someone who had shown her that strength, fear, and wonder could exist all at once, and that this mixture made her more alive than she had ever been. For the first time, Lyra did not feel fear. She felt something else, acceptance, curiosity, and the faintest flicker of hope. Perhaps, she thought, this strange human had not come to disrupt her world. Perhaps he had come to awaken it. The night deepened around them, stars glittering like shards of light in the dark sky. Lyra felt her pulse slow, her thoughts settle, but the warmth inside her remained. It would not fade. It was alive. It was hers. And it had begun its journey. As she stood there facing him, Lyra understood one undeniable truth. The human had changed her. He had touched something inside her, something she could not control, but something she would not reject. And for the first time in her life, she felt truly awake. The days that followed were heavy for Lyra. The warmth in her chest, that fire that had awakened when she first confronted the human, refused to fade. It was a strange companion now, sometimes comforting, sometimes torturing her. Every thought she had seemed to circle back to him. Every action tinged with the memory of his eyes, his voice, the gentle way he moved through the world. She tried to focus on her daily tasks. She helped her mother tend the healing herbs, carried water from the river, and repaired broken fences in the village. But even as she worked, her mind wandered. She found herself imagining his smile, the way he had encouraged her to face her own feelings, and the quiet strength that seemed to radiate from him. Lyra hated it. She hated the way her heart skipped whenever he approached. She hated the way her thoughts spun uncontrollably whenever she imagined him near. And yet she could not deny it. Something inside her had shifted, she felt, incomplete when he was not around, as if a part of her had woken up and was waiting for him. Her friends noticed the change. "Lyra, are you all right?" one asked cautiously. "You seem distant. Your eyes are elsewhere." I am fine," she said quickly, forcing a smile. But the truth lingered unspoken. She was not fine. Something inside her was growing, something powerful and frightening. She could not name it, could not control it, and that terrified her more than she wanted to admit. The human, sensing her inner struggle, kept his distance, observing quietly, never imposing, never demanding. Sometimes, when she caught sight of him across the village, a strange calm washed over her, followed immediately by a storm of emotion she could barely contain. Her chest tightened, her hands shook, and she felt simultaneously drawn to him and frightened by the intensity of her feelings. One evening, as the twin moons rose high in the sky, Lyra found herself wandering alone to the stream. She sank onto the grass, staring at her reflection in the water, wondering why her life had become so complicated. The fire inside her burned hotter than ever, and she could no longer ignore it. "I do not understand this," she whispered to herself. "Why do I feel this way? Why does my chest ache when he is near? Why do I care so much?" The words trembled on her lips, and for the first time she allowed herself to cry. Not in shame, not in fear, but in release. The human approached quietly, not a word spoken, but she could feel his presence. He sat beside her, silent, patient, offering no judgment, only acceptance. "I do not know how to handle this," she admitted finally, voice breaking. "I do not know if it is right, or if it is dangerous, or if it belongs in my life at all." He looked at her with understanding. "Feelings like yours are rare. They are powerful, yes, and they can frighten you because they demand courage. But they also show that you are alive, that you are capable of more than you imagine. You are not wrong for feeling them." Lyra trembled, listening, absorbing the weight of his words. For the first time, she realized that her inner turmoil was not a weakness. It was a signal, a call to face herself, to understand her own heart, and to embrace the courage that had always been inside her, waiting for a spark. Days turned into nights, and nights back into days. Lyra tried to resist the pull she felt toward him, tried to convince herself that she could ignore it. But every shared glance, every gentle smile, every act of kindness he offered, broke down her defenses. The fire inside her raged, bright and unrelenting, demanding acknowledgement. And with that fire came clarity. She understood that this struggle within her was part of life, part of growth, and part of something beautiful she had never experienced before. She realized that her emotions, her fear, her longing, and her courage were intertwined. They were pieces of herself that had awakened because of him, and she could no longer deny the truth. She wanted to face it, not run from it. Lyra stood by the stream as the moons glimmered above, wind brushing her hair across her face. The fire inside her had not dimmed, it had become a beacon that called her to be brave, to confront the unknown, and to accept that life, connection, and courage were all part of what it meant to truly exist. Her heart beat fiercely. Her thoughts swirled, but at last she felt ready to face the next step, ready to face the human, ready to face herself. The conflict within was no longer just confusion. It was awakening, and awakening demanded action. Lyra took a deep breath and whispered to the night, "I will not run. I will face this." And somewhere in the quiet darkness she knew he would be there, waiting, just as steadfast, just as patient, just as alive as the fire that now burned within her. The sun rose slowly over the village, spilling soft golden light across the land. Lyra sat on a small hill overlooking the fields where the human worked with the villagers. She watched him move with quiet confidence, lifting logs, repairing broken fences, and gently tending to the children who gathered near him. His presence was calm, steady, and yet it stirred something wild inside her that she could not control. For days, she had struggled with the fire inside her heart. The pull toward him, the confusion, the longing, the fear. Every attempt to deny it had failed. And now, as she observed him from afar, she realized that the feelings were not random. They were a signal, a reflection of something deeper than mere attraction. They were admiration, respect, trust, and something more profound, inspiration. Lyra rose and walked slowly toward him, her steps cautious but determined. As she approached, he looked up and smiled, the same quiet, unassuming smile that had first made her heart race. She felt it again, the warmth, the ache, the pull, but this time she did not shy away. She stood before him, eyes locked on his. "I think I'm beginning to understand," she said softly, her voice shaking but steady. "It is not just about what I feel. It is about what you make me feel. You make me stronger. You make me want to be more than I was." The human nodded, his expression calm but thoughtful. That is what connection can do. It is not just about feelings. It is about growth. It is about seeing yourself in a new way, inspired by others and discovering courage you did not know existed. Lyra's chest tightened. The words resonated with her, echoing the fire she had felt since the day he arrived. She realized that it was not fear alone that had been inside her. It was potential, possibility, strength, and he had awakened it without even trying. But why? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Why do you make me feel all of this? I do not understand how one person can change another so completely. He stepped closer, the movement slow, careful, respectful. Because when you meet someone who lives with courage, compassion, and integrity, it awakens something in you. It reminds you that life is bigger than your fears, bigger than the rules you have always followed. It reminds you that you can rise to challenges, that you can care, that you can be brave. Lyra's eyes glistened with tears. She had spent her life following the patterns of her world, doing what was expected, safe and familiar. But he had shown her that there was more color, more fire, more life than she had ever imagined. And now, standing before him, she understood that her feelings, the ache, the warmth, the longing, were not a weakness. They were proof that she was alive, that she could grow, that she could face the unknown. I never thought I could feel this, she admitted, her voice breaking slightly. I never thought I could care this much about someone or something outside myself. And yet, here I am, feeling it all, more than I ever imagined possible. He reached out, not touching but closing the space between them with calm reassurance. That is life, Lyra. That is humanity. And maybe even what it means for any being to truly exist. You do not have to understand everything now. You only need to feel it, accept it, and let it guide you. The words settled over her like a gentle tide, washing away fear and doubt. Lyra felt the fire inside her chest shift, from confusion and anxiety into clarity and courage. She realized that it was not just him who had changed her. It was her own willingness to face her heart, to accept the unknown, to step forward even when she was afraid. For the first time, she smiled freely, tears spilling down her cheeks not from fear, but from the weight of realization. She understood now. The human had not just awakened her feelings. He had awakened her strength, her potential, her life. And as she stood there, bathed in sunlight, Lyra knew that nothing would ever be the same. The fire inside her would guide her, protect her, and push her forward. And whatever came next, she would face it, not with fear, but with courage. The human looked at her, his gaze soft but steady, and in that quiet moment, she felt a bond she could not explain, a connection that went beyond words, beyond worlds, beyond understanding. Something had changed profoundly, irrevocably. Lyra had begun to understand. And understanding, she realized, was the first step toward embracing everything that life, and this human, had to offer. The village was restless that morning. Dark clouds gathered over the horizon, rumbling with low, threatening growls. The wind picked up, carrying the scent of rain and distant danger. Lyra stood at the edge of the fields, her eyes scanning the skies. Something deep inside told her that this was no ordinary storm. The human moved beside her, calm as ever, carrying tools and supplies for the villagers. He glanced at her, his gaze steady and reassuring. We need to prepare, he said simply. The storm will test us, but we can face it together. Lyra nodded, a fire of determination burning in her chest. She realized now that her feelings for him were more than emotion. They were strength. The warmth she had felt, the pull in her heart, had transformed into courage. She would not hide. She would not falter. She would face the challenge side by side with him. As the storm hit, the wind screamed through the village like a living creature. Trees bent under the force, roofs rattled, and the rain fell in heavy sheets. Villagers shouted, struggling to secure homes, protect animals, and gather supplies. Lyra's heart raced. But it was not fear. It was focus, purpose, and determination all at once. The human moved through the chaos with quiet efficiency, helping the villagers, giving instructions, and lifting fallen debris. Lyra followed, her steps steady despite the pounding rain. Each action she took reminded her of the fire inside her, the courage that had awakened. She realized that she was no longer just a bystander in her own life. She was a part of something bigger, a force that could protect, inspire, and endure. At one point, a large branch fell dangerously close to a child who had wandered into the storm. Without hesitation, Lyra sprinted forward, heart pounding, and grabbed the child, pulling them to safety just as the branch crashed where they had been standing moments before. The child looked up at her, wide-eyed and trembling, and Lyra felt a surge of pride, relief, and unexpected joy. She was capable. She was strong. She was alive. The storm raged for hours, testing the villagers and the human alike. But together they managed to protect the village. Roofs were secured, animals sheltered, and the people huddled in safe spaces. Lyra stood soaked to the bone, shivering but exhilarated. She looked at the human who had been through the storm just as she had, and felt an unspoken bond. "You were amazing," he said, voice calm but filled with quiet admiration. "You didn't hesitate. You faced it and you protected others." Lyra's chest swelled with a mix of pride and emotion. I didn't think I could," she admitted, voice trembling. "But I had to. I couldn't let anyone get hurt." He stepped closer, his gaze meeting hers. "That fire inside you," he said softly. "It isn't just feeling. It's strength, courage, life. You've been afraid of it, but now you see what it can do. You've awakened it and you used it when it mattered most." Lyra's heart ached, but not with fear. This was a sweet ache, the ache of realization. She understood now that her emotions, her longing, her admiration, and yes, even her fear had all been leading to this moment. The human had shown her not only that her feelings were real, but that they could become power to act, to protect, and to rise above uncertainty. As the storm finally passed and the twin suns began to break through the clouds, Lyra felt a sense of clarity she had never known. She was no longer a confused girl struggling with her emotions. She was a being awakened, stronger, braver, and ready to embrace the life that had been waiting for her all along. She turned to the human, her eyes shining with gratitude and newfound understanding. I think I understand now," she said softly.
"It's not just about how I feel.
"It's about what I can do, because of what you showed me." He nodded, his expression gentle and steady. "Exactly. And whatever comes next, you will face it with the fire inside you. You are alive, Lyra, and you are strong." The village, battered but standing, seemed to mirror her newfound clarity. The danger had passed, but something inside her had changed forever. She had faced fear, embraced the unknown, and discovered courage she had never imagined. For the first time, Lyra felt fully alive, fully herself, and ready to step into whatever future awaited her, side by side with the human who had awakened her heart, mind, and soul. The sky was painted with gold and crimson as the twin suns began to set. Lyra stood at the edge of the village, her eyes reflecting the fading light. The storm had passed, the village had survived, and yet she felt something deeper than relief. The fire inside her chest, the warmth, the pull, the courage, it was all still there, stronger than ever. She realized now fully that it was not just fear or confusion. It was life. It was connection. It was something that had been waiting for her all along. The human approached slowly, carrying nothing but the calm certainty that had always surrounded him. When he stopped beside her, he did not speak at first. He simply looked at her, a quiet understanding in his gaze. Lyra felt the familiar pull, the ache, the longing, but this time it was no longer frightening. It was steady, anchoring her, giving her courage. She began, her voice trembling. "I don't know if I can put it into words. What you've done, what you've shown me, it's changed everything. I don't just feel, I understand. I feel alive. I feel more than I ever thought possible." He nodded, a soft smile forming on his lips. "That is what connection does. It awakens strength you did not know you had. It challenges you and it inspires you. You have faced it, Lyra. You have embraced it. That is courage and that is life." Tears filled her eyes, not of sorrow but of release. She had been afraid, she had been confused, and she had questioned herself endlessly. But now, standing here, she knew the truth. The human had not just touched her feelings, he had awakened her soul. He had shown her that she could be brave, that she could love, that she could rise above fear and uncertainty. I want to follow it," she whispered. "I want to follow this. Fire inside me, this life you helped me see. I want to face what comes next, not alone, but with you." He stepped closer, his gaze steady, unwavering. "Then we face it together. Whatever comes next, we face it as equals, side by side." Lyra felt a joy so deep it shook her from the inside. She thought of the quiet days before he arrived, the ordinary life she had always known, and she realized how small it had been compared to what she could now feel, see, and become. Humanity had entered her life, and in its presence, she had discovered her own power, her own courage, and her own capacity for connection. "Do you know," she said softly, voice filled with wonder, "that you have changed me? Not just my feelings. Everything inside me, I will never be the same." He looked at her with gentle admiration. "I didn't change you. You changed yourself. I only showed you the path, the possibility. You were strong enough to follow it. That is the power inside every being. It only needs a spark to awaken." Lyra smiled, tears running freely down her cheeks. She stepped closer, reaching out instinctively, her hand brushing against his. The fire in her chest roared in delight, not fear, not confusion, but pure life. She knew now that it was not a weakness to feel deeply. It was proof that she could love, protect, and endure. The wind rustled through the alien grasses as she spoke again, her voice steady and resolute. "I will not hide from life. I will not hide from what I feel. I will follow it, embrace it, and face it, because you showed me it is worth everything." The human nodded, his eyes reflecting the twin suns now dipping below the horizon. "Then go, Lyra. Go with courage, go with strength, and go knowing that you are alive. Always alive. And I will be here, wherever the path takes us." For the first time, Lyra felt completely whole. The fear that had once gripped her chest was gone, replaced with clarity, courage, and connection. The fire inside her was no longer wild or confusing, it was steady, a guiding light for the future. As the village settled into the quiet evening, Lyra and the human stood together side by side, gazing at the horizon. The stars began to twinkle in the sky, and in that moment Lyra understood the truth of everything she had felt, feared, and embraced. Life was larger than she had ever imagined. Connection was more powerful than fear, and courage could rise in the hearts of those brave enough to follow it. She turned to him, smiling, her heart full. "Thank you for showing me what it means to be alive." He returned the smile, calm and steady. "Thank you for trusting it and trusting yourself." And as the twin moons rose into the night, Lyra knew she would never feel small again. Humanity had awakened her, and she would carry that fire forever, strong, alive, and ready for whatever the universe had in store.